Okay. Submission. Okay, first of all, we're talking submission. So what comes to mind? Positive, negative? What's your gut feel? You hear the word positive?
Like a horse.
Like a horse? That's good. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
I don't like it. It's uncomfortable.
It's no fun.
I love it. It depends on who your master is.
Oh, it depends on who your master is. So some hate it, some love it. What I have enjoyed about going through this process is I've studied these before. I mean, I studied them originally in college, and then I've taught them a couple times through the years. And this time I'm going at it fresh and looking at all my stuff I had and adding to it, and I'm catching it more this time than I ever have, like what it really is getting to the heart of. This might be one that I've caught at a deeper level than I have before, because I understand the definition. I could tell you, you could ask me 4 weeks ago, hey, what's the definition of submission? Also, is what we have here to place oneself under the authority of another. That's just what it is. Many of the disciplines we've talked about, most of them really probably require some sort of effort, maybe whether it's planning, whether it's scheduling, whether it's like, okay, I'm going to pray now, I'm going to fast, there's a thought process. This is more of a day-to-day attitude thing that as we unfold this, and maybe that's where it gets painful, because we think of it, and I have to submit here and submit there, it's no fun. But I think as we look at this, it's going to be a much more positive thing. But the issue is submission goes against our nature at its, just at its core. We're not submissive people. We live in a self-centered world. We are taught, and we believe our culture fully embraces that we have certain rights. We deserve everything we need. If I have a bad day, it's unusual, it's terrible. If someone does something to me I don't like, it's like, how could you possibly do that if they think differently than me? Like, you're wrong, We should be able to attain every goal we ever make. We should, every experience that we want to experience should be exactly how we think it should be. We should never have pain. We should never have to wait for things. I mentioned we had rights. We deserve to be treated with dignity and honor. And if things don't meet our expectations, we feel the need to speak out and protest. We go to a restaurant, and if the service is a little slow, we complain. Been there, complained, right? If the food isn't just perfect, we send it back, and realizing they're understaffed and underworked and underpaid and overworked and everything. But we don't care because I want this my way, and that's how we're wired. We get frustrated when someone is when we're in a meeting and someone comes up with an opposite idea than what we have. I think we should paint the walls green. Well, I think it should be blue. What an idiot. And then it's like everybody should just go with green or whatever. The issue might be maybe a bigger issue, but it could be a minor one like that. We get frustrated if someone speaks negatively about our idea or offers, like I said, the opposing view. How many times, and I'm assuming everyone has done this, have you gotten angry when someone pulled out in front of you in traffic, or if they're going too fast or too slow? Okay.
On the way here, or just
Even on the way here. Now, honestly, I don't care if they pulled out in front of someone 2 miles away. It's not that they pulled out. It's they pulled out in front of me. You don't understand. Or I don't care how fast they go if they're not behind me, trying to push me, or how slow they go if I'm not behind them. It's like, I don't care, go as slow as you want, as long as you're not impeding me. It's all about me. It's me. That's how we're wired. That's what makes us angry when things interfere with us. We become disappointed and angry and incensed when the world doesn't place us in the center of the universe. and this is the way we are. But Jesus gives an extremely, very opposite, different way to live, probably best summed up in the term surrender or submission. That's the core of what we're talking about today. The Jesus way is not to rise up and demand what we have coming to us, but rather to live in humility, to voluntarily, I guess I didn't write, I was going to write the definition, to voluntarily surrender our rights, quote unquote, for the good and the benefit of others. The Greek word that we translate as submit in the English is often used in the context of like a military term describing as someone lower in rank. You obey the commanding officer because they're the commanding officer, right? You don't get to share your opinion. You're a military man, right? Do you ever get to say, well, thank you, sir, but I don't think I want to peel the potatoes tonight? They're like, they tell you to peel the potatoes or guard the empty warehouse or whatever. You just do it. You just do. There's no question. There's a command, it's an order, you're under, it's a hierarchy, they are here, you are here, so whatever they say, you just get to do it. The biblical idea of submission is we're all here, there's neither Greek nor Jew, male or female, blah, 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 all the stuff, right? And I am voluntarily putting myself under. That's the biblical view. I submit to you, I place myself under, I yield my will, my desires, my goals, my way, so that you can have your will, your desires, your goals, your way. That's not like something you plan to do. That's an attitude. That's a way of living. It's a part of being a disciple of Jesus. The biblical idea, or the verb, I think I have this in here. Yeah, this is from the International Standard Bible Encyclopedia. The verb describes a voluntary attitude of giving in, cooperating, assuming responsibility, and carrying a burden. Still doesn't sound fun, but it will. It will. I think when we get to the heart of why, I was going to say Foster. I guess Foster wrote the stuff, and that's I don't know how much is Foster's and how much is other stuff I've read, but why he says this is a good thing. When we submit to God, we are actively obeying the wishes and commands of God. He's not forcing us. He's never forced us to obey him ever. I mean, we know there's consequences and stuff, but he's never like pushed a button and just suddenly made us zombie robot people. We read something and we choose. I will submit. I will submit. Yes, I will submit to that. He's not taking away our freedom to choose. We are willfully giving our hearts, minds, choices to his plans. When we submit to another believer, we place our faith in God that he's the one in charge. He's working his Holy Spirit in the situation and in their lives, and so I will submit to a fellow believer. We submit to a spouse. We're offering our very best to them out of personal love and sacrifices. God has asked us to submit to one another, so I will submit because I just trust God. Ephesians 5 is I'm not actually even going to get to the verse where we all get nervous, verse 22, because I'm going to stop at 21. I should have put 22 in there, but look at the context of submission in Ephesians 5. Verse 15, pay careful attention then how you walk. This is your spiritual walk, right? Your daily walk. Not as unwise people, but as wise, making the most of the time because the days are evil. So don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Don't get drunk with wine, which leads to reckless living, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing, making music with your heart to the Lord, giving thanks always for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another in the fear of Christ. NIV, that I have it memorized, is out of reverence for Christ. So I always go there first in my head. So living, and there's a list here that's in your notes there. The living wisely comes right out of these verses. Making a godly lifestyle, making the most of our time includes things like knowing God's will. I'm going to know what he wants for my life. Not getting drunk with wine. Speaking to one another in psalms, hymns, songs. Making music in your heart. I've always thought that was an interesting verse. I mean, we don't do a whole lot of singing to one another. But there are contexts where like somebody starts singing and we all kind of jump in and it's kind of this rare moments. That happens more in Africa, doesn't it, Upenyu? Sorry, you're like, well, I'm on the phone. I mean, because I've been in settings where some people start singing, and it's like, this is so cool, you know, and they're singing back when and then someone jumps in and they sing a song, and we're far too dignified or something. I don't know what it is. We were waiting for someone to start the song for us, but it is scriptural. It's like, yeah, just part of what you do, giving thanks to God for everything, and then that number 5, submitting to one another in the fear of Christ, or out of reverence to Christ. The purpose of this spiritual discipline of submission is freedom. Freedom. And this is, I think, the core. This is what I don't think I've grasped before, that was like kind of sinking in much more this time around. The goal isn't to just do each of our disciplines. Like, every discipline leads to some type of freedom. So we talk about prayer. It's not just okay, we're going to pray and check it up, but it's providing some freedom in our life. Study. I have to do it. It's like it's leading to freedom in our life. And the freedom that we have. Let me just ask you before I tell you what the textbook says. What do you think the freedom might be from coming, that we gain from practicing submission? I don't know if I would have come up on this by trying to.
You don't have to make command decisions.
Do I have to say that again?
Make a command decision.
Make command decisions?
Yeah. Do this or that.
Yeah.
It's already decided for you.
Gotcha. So someone's already decided, you're just falling in. Mm-hmm. But what if you're a leader?
You blame it on Jesus.
Blame it on Jesus. No, I'm just playing devil's I mean, you're put in a place of leadership because you're supposed to lead, so you know. But I know, I totally get what you're saying. What else do you think? I mean, what would be potential freedom that we gain from practicing submission? It seems more of a bondage, doesn't it?
Yeah,
I have to do what they said, because I have to submit. Gospels.
I think just get other people's viewpoints, other people's ideas, and
Widens your horizon a little bit. Yeah. This was like a, I don't know, mic drop, mind blown. Here's the freedom we gain from practicing submission is the lifting of the incredibly heavy burden we carry, where we believe we always have to be right, where we always have to get our way in everything.
Wow.
I mean, think about that. If I am free from getting my way, if I step back from that, what causes all of our anger? Not getting what we want. Having to vie for my opinion, or debate, all the energy it takes. Can't you all just do what I say, or think what I think, or bow down before me? But when you don't have to do that, it frees you from all that stress, all the fretting, all the sleepless nights, all the effort that we put into the anger that comes from not getting our needs met. The freedom comes when you voluntarily give up your rights. You lose the pressure to continually fight for your rights. We lose the disappointment we feel when someone doesn't give us what we want. So you dream all day of pizza, and pizza. Every time, pizza, I can't wait to go and get pizza. I can't wait. You can't get it out of your mind. You go home and the whole family wants to eat burritos, all right? I mean, burritos are good. You're disappointed because you wanted pizza. Submission says, okay, let's go with burritos, whatever. I mean, it didn't become an issue of anger, like, no, I wanted pizza, you people have done it. Because we've all done that. I mean, with whatever issue, but I mean, I like food. So, I could pout if I was in the mood for pizza all the day, I'm stupid tacos, It frees you from that. So insert any dream, any goal, any idea, any thought. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Well, what was interesting is Monday, I was thinking about doing the disciplines. I need to figure out something to fast for.
Uh-huh.
And then I was having struggle with working on the airplane, which led to anger and the swearing. And I don't like that. I want to stop. And then it was okay, what am I going to fast? And Heidi made the comment, it seems like I want cheese on everything. Well, that's just some cheese. Just to Well, then you go to the Bible study at the pizza place. But it was interesting, but that's wondering that it seems that the submission seemed to fall in.
Yeah.
Looking for how to deal with when the plane is being argumentative.
You expect it to be. Of course it's being argumentative. It's then you're like, okay, now I got to fix it. It's like, I expect that bull to turn. It's like, why? I mean, it's an attitude thing. I mean, you're not looking for failure. We're not looking for everybody to run over you. We'll kind of cover some stuff. I mean, but if you let go of the expectations that upset us most of the time. We're born as barbaric, self-centered, uncivilized creatures. I mean, we cry when we're hungry. Why? Because we want someone to feed us. It's like, I'm hungry, feed me. I mean, we all did it. We've all experienced that with our children. We stomp our feet when we don't immediately get a cookie, but I want a cookie. What do you mean? Who are you to say no? I'm your mom. I'm your dad, right? We scream when our diapers are dirty. We're shocked and dismayed when someone says no. It's like, don't tell me that. Every one of us goes through that. We spend our early years and the rest of our lives learning how to transition from barbarian to civilized adult by learning this difficult lesson of how to practice submission. We're teaching our children to submit to us as parents because in the future they're going to have to submit to everybody around them or they're going to have a really miserable life, right? We've all had moments or days of anger, disappointment, discontentment, by living without a submissive attitude. The rage that happens in the nursery when little Tommy wants to play with a toy and Susie's already playing with it. I mean, if you've ever worked in the nursery, you have children, if you have children, you've seen, it's just habit. It's naturally, right? The arguments, the tears, the fights on the playground. I can remember being in elementary school when maybe you have 5 friends who want to swing together and there's only 4 swings available. Well, who's going to not swing? And it's like, it's not fair. And we start screaming and crying. Someone's upset and there's sadness and it's terrible. Someone has to watch. The blood pressure that begins to rise when you're in a meeting and you suggest an idea or you want to go a certain direction and everybody in the group wants to start doing something else. I was in a Kiwanis meeting the other day and we're planning a fundraiser, a mini golf thing. It's going to be kind of fun. And this guy's done a ton of work, and he's done all this research and talked to all these people, and he's kind of laying out, it's about this, this, and this. And one by one, everybody's like, he didn't get mad outwardly. He's the city manager before, so he's used to this. So he never said anything. But everybody's like, well, instead of this, let's do that. Instead of this, let's do that. What about this? He's like, he handled it perfectly. But I thought, man, I wonder on the inside, probably because I was thinking of this, I wonder on the inside if you're going, you dopes, you didn't talk to the owners, you don't know this, you don't know, you didn't do the research. So he handled it quite well. But we've all been in meetings where you think you have the idea that's perfect and great, and then other people think, maybe that's not so perfect. And good. You're in a band, right? And you have a vision for what a song should sound like, the speed, the volume, the dynamics, the flow, and the other band members have conflicting visions. That can make a 15-minute rehearsal go to 2 hours, right? You guys have been in those. I mean, I've been in them. Told you last week I started this worship band in the 90s, and I was not qualified. I had no idea what I was doing. Didn't know how to. I couldn't even play an instrument at that point yet. And so I just threw these people together. We're going to do this music, this worship music, and I always had a vision for what I wanted the song to sound like, usually what the CD sounded like, But I didn't know how to communicate it. I couldn't tell you what the bass was doing or the lead guitar or I couldn't say, hey, drum, do the g thing, I just didn't know how to say it. And so they all came to that song with their own vision, and sometimes we'd go for 2 hours and still not. And we were all going different speeds, we were all going different volumes, we were all doing different things, and that is terrible. That's terrible. That's the definition of junior high garage band, right? Because they're kids, they don't know what they're doing. They're just like, yeah. And finally, the guy I hired on, one of the things he said was, you know what? Everybody follow the drummer. What if he's wrong? Well, then we're all wrong at the same speed. We're not all wrong at 5 speeds, And like today, we got the click tracks, So now it's just like, I don't know if you guys know that. This little things we got on, that's keeping the beat. So it's not like, well, Danielle's playing too fast, and well, Thad, he's playing too slow, or whatever. I mean, it's none of that. It's just like, nope, it's all in your ear. And the bigger churches even have like people say, okay, we're doing the chorus 2, or whatever. I don't know that from listening to other stuff, but it's a submission thing. Who gets to decide? Well, I'm the leader of the band, but you don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you're right. So that's where things fell apart in the first few years as I was trying to do this. So what happens when we don't get our way? Whether it's a meeting, whether it's in the nursery, whether it's an election, half the country blows up, right? We're on the dinner table, we get angry, we waste a lot of time. Inwardly, outwardly, we lose sleep, we fret, everything. Richard Foster says, the obsession to demand that things go the way we want them to go is one of the greatest bondages in human society today. People will spend weeks, months, even years in a perpetual stew because some little thing did not go as they wished. They will fuss and fume. They will get mad about it. They will act as if their very life hangs on the issue. They may even get an ulcer over it. Can you relate? Man.
Really break things.
They break things. they throw wrenches at planes. Yeah. Isn't it fascinating to, and I've gotten in it too, watch social media in the political realm, right? Just get off social media the first 2 or 3 weeks, months, years after an election, because half the nation's angry. It doesn't matter who won. The other half's mad. And they're very vocal about it. I've been vocal too. I've done it. Because the thought that someone would be dumb enough to vote differently than me, what is your problem, right? That's we're all thinking that. Half the country, people I like, vote differently than me. Can't respect them anymore, but no. We get so upset about that. There's all kinds of great memes of people screaming, when Trump won and or when Obama won or whoever, and nobody still knows who won the last election. But no, we went places, right? But wouldn't it be great to be free from that bondage? There's usually comes a certain point, I'll be all frustrated too, and then at some point I'll say, dude, just take a step back, and like, has any of that helped anything or changed anything? Or and what the politicians do, they try to stir it all up so we all get mad all the more, because they need us hating each other, them to keep getting their paychecks. And so we're just part of the game, but we jump in so easily because they know our nature. They know our nature. They know what we want to do. Wouldn't it be refreshing to be free from the anguish and the arguments and the sleepless nights and the stress of social media and the inner frustration over people who aren't doing what we want at home or work or school or on the road or whatever? Well, that will happen by practicing the spiritual discipline of submission. We're not talking about a compromise of beliefs. You still have your convictions, you still have your opinions and your ideas. You just don't demand that everyone must agree with you for life to exist. Your energy turns from maybe being angry at people to maybe we could educate people. Maybe we can encourage people. Maybe we can celebrate people. Maybe we can allow people to think something differently than me, and I don't have to hate them. I can just go like, maybe let's have more conversation, but have adult conversation, and Christian conversation, and that changes things. Their perspective may not be better. Their ideas may be worse, but God does love them as much as He loves you. And we don't have to draw a line of rage between us and them in whatever the issue might be. He has called us to voluntarily raise them up above me in importance, and I will voluntarily place myself under them in importance. Kind of hard too. Kind of hard to do. part of the secret to accomplishing that, though, is coming to the realization that most things don't matter nearly as much as we think they do.
What was that? What was it?
Things don't matter nearly as much as we think they do, right? Now, I've been hearing for 50 years that the most important election is right this one. Like, democracy is at stake. That's been the new thing. I mean, they've been saying that for years, but I mean, I don't know. There might be a fill-in that I'll get to that I kind of repeat it a little bit here. I think if you're looking for, yeah, that's coming up. It's the actual fill-in. But I mean, like in the 80s, that was the big thing. Like they were pushed. Oh, this is it. This is it. This is it. We got to vote. Country's going down. You could argue it has gone down a lot, but you know, like it's over. Without, you know, and that's what everybody tells their people. And it's like, okay, the reality is, some of the people who have voted in have been terrible, but the country's still here. Now, it's no guarantee it's going to last forever. I mean, but so you got to be careful with this. But the point, and I'm probably using a bad example, but you know, did they put cheese on your burger when you ordered it? Now, this is like the worst day of my life. It's like, is it? I mean, you know, you got a really good life if that was just that. If that's enough, that creates rage in your life. That's where the freedom comes from. That's where the freedom, like, I don't have to get crazy upset. My broccoli's a little bit cold. I paid $9 for this. Like, yeah, they're all people. Broccoli's good. now you're hurting my feelings. Put cheese on it.
Now you want to run the cheese.
That's good. Oh, man.
You know I can't eat it. Leftovers.
So I mean, but again, I keep going to politics. I should leave that one alone because you know, the new policy at work won't bring down the company. All right, it might be a really bad idea, and some companies do go down. But you know, it's probably like, hey, we're going to do 3 memos or something. It's like, just do the memos, or you know, whatever it is. They don't, I don't do the corporate world, so I probably shouldn't be talking about that. The person jumping on the swing first isn't going to take away your quality of life if you're watching for 15 minutes, or maybe you miss it that whole recess, you know, and then you'll get the next recess, and life's going to go on. You'll probably still graduate from school and go on and have a fine life, even though you didn't swing for 15 minutes that one time. But man, that's the big rage at the moment. Having Chinese food one night doesn't mean you can't have Mexican food the next night. I mean, I like to have both. So, you know, don't let it bother you. Most arguments and fights and disagreements and frustrations stem from the fact that people don't have the freedom to give in to each other. You know, we got to stand our ground to the end. Every issue is critical. The entire future of the world pivots around this one big idea in your head. Here's how submission helps. I think they have this in your outline there. Submission enables us to bring our angry spirit to a place where it no longer controls us. It enables us to distinguish between genuine issues and stubborn self-will. Some of the things I mentioned are genuine and real, but then it's how you treat it, how you maneuver it, how you communicate it. Tell you a dirty little secret, and it's kind of even halfway embarrassing to even say this, but I was thinking about this. I thought, what a terrible example of submission from my own personal life. That at the time I never would have thought of it this way, but it's really what it was. We prayed for a year and a half before we had an offer to come to Des Moines and plant a church, and when we actually moved here to do it, to Johnston. We just, you know, we wanted to make sure it was God's plan. We didn't want to, you know, I have wild hairs every week, and it's like, okay, wild ideas of, we're going to do this, you know. And last week it was, we're going to do what did I say? We're going to do a snow thing. I think we just put a tropical snow in the parking lot. That'll pay for all of our missions. Anyway, so I'm always thinking. I've always got, you know, there's always something. This is the greatest thing since ever. Okay. So I like to check my.
Snow machine.
What? A snow machine? That would my jump.
Don't encourage.
I'm going to write that down. We got ski loft. So especially when it was a big decision like moving, I want to make sure it's not just some wild harebrained idea that I have or whatever. So we prayed a year and a half every single day, and it took me decades to figure this out too. Just a side note, I don't know if God cares half the time. Yeah, do we go to Atlantic or Johnston? like it's an hour and a half away. God, what does God really want? He's like, I just want you to make disciples. I don't care where you do it. I'm not the Apostle Paul. None of us are. I'm not starting the literal foundation of the entire church age. It's like Paul was chosen by God. He was like, okay, Paul, Barnabas, you guys go. Okay, all right. Nobody else. Everybody else is like, hey, wherever you go, make disciples. So hey, if you're in Atlantic, make disciples. You're in Johnston, make disciples. And sometimes we think like, no, I'm the center of the story, and God, I need to know. What do you want? Now He wants to know. He'll make it really clear. Moses was not like, well, I wonder if I should go to Egypt or not. God was like, go to Egypt. He fought it. Paul and Barnabas, set apart from me, Paul and Barnabas. It was very clear when God specifically has a will. Other than that, He's like, yeah, do what you want. Still, spending a year and a half praying, fasting, everything, all the fleece, all this stuff. So it's the fact that I was struggling so much for a clear answer tells me God didn't care. That was freeing to me. That's aside. That's free for your stuff there. So anyway, we're in prayer mode. I'm seeking God's heart, and I can tell you the exact moment when I decided, you know what, we're going to do it. We're going to move, and it's not a very good reason. We were church was growing. We had our building was a lot like this room, like a low ceiling, bigger, spanned all the walls, but it didn't have a church feel at all because it was intended to be. It was built like this, that we would build an auditorium thing later. That was before I came, and so we had this room, and just because I never get to draw, so we have the square. Little stages up here, and we went to 2 services. Things we just keep growing. There was a big classroom over here, and so we thought, let's just tear this wall out. So we tore the wall out. So now we have overflow. We're filling that thing with both services, and that's when we're like, okay, we got to start really planning the new building. I thought, okay, this is great. So we're having all these. We go to road trips. We do all this stuff. We're doing all that building. Somewhere in there, we thought, well, let's put a portable wall in here. Because sometimes we want to have meetings or classrooms, but yes, great idea. Makes it more versatile because everything was bricks, so we tore the bricks out before, so now it was just an open L. And we're looking at all the options, and there's some stuff is like paper, and it's awful and terrible and gross, and accordion wall things they're not soundproof, and it's like, why even bother? It's a waste of money. You're getting my flavor. Other things cost more, but they're soundproof, and they can actually make rooms. You can have doors and everything. You can go as far as you want on that. You can go crazy, but for our little setting, we could have done some pretty nice stuff. Obviously, I wanted the nicer quality. I thought we're going to add a building. At some point, this is going to be a more permanent thing. Anyway, everybody was like, no, that's dumb, and they put up an accordion thing. It was just like you could probably put your finger through it if you wanted to. I might be exaggerating, but not much. I'll never forget, I'm walking down the hall, and I knew it was happening, obviously, and they were putting on the finishing touches, and they were so proud of it, and they were like, oh, look what we've done. And I remember thinking, if I can't trust you with a wall, I can't trust you with the church. I don't want to be a part of that. Whatever you're going to build, I don't even want a part of it. That would be embarrassing to me. And at that moment, I decided, it's time to go. Now, it still took a few months. And it's because Cheryl saw a change in me. It was a change. It was, I didn't get mad. I didn't yell at anybody. I said, oh, yeah, I just smiled, and then, yeah. I think if God did want this to happen, I think He did. It's other things that confirmed that. God probably used my pride to turn my heart, because He knew, he's so shallow. He's going to get upset about a dumb, door. And in the ultimate sense of humor, God moves us here into an old abandoned warehouse with a leaky roof. Talk about shabby. But I love this building. But 25 years ago, I'd be like, who would go into a warehouse like that? And it's, what? Well, I'm just saying, this is kind of God's sense of humor. You thought a wall was bad, out a hole. But anyway, that was not a good example of submission. But I'm so glad we got here, because this it's been a lot of fun. So I should probably look at my notes at some point.
He wants the journey also to be included in the adventure, or the part of life. It's not the end result. Because Moses spent 40 years in the desert getting Egypt out of Israel. It
took him 40 years to grow up. We all have to go through. That's a good point. We have to go through that journey. And wouldn't it be great if we could all like be 65 and start at 20, and with all the experience and the knowledge, and life would be a lot different. What's that?
Well, mentally or physically, 65.
Well, whatever. Hey, they used to live into the hundreds. We'll break that down more in, I think it's guidance. That's the last week, where we'll talk about, getting God's guidance, and that'll be a cool conversation. But okay. The key to submission, here's the part of the fill that you're looking for, is to get ourselves to see that most things in life are not nearly as big of an issue as I think they are. As big of an issue as I think. Once we realize everything's not monster huge, like it's just it helps us relax. It helps us to take a breath a little bit. And once we relax, submission becomes more natural. I was all wound up. That's why I was not submissive on a stupid wall. I mean, who cares? Who really cares? They were wise enough to go, we don't care. But never mind. I'm going to defend myself. It becomes more natural to submit. In submission, we learn that other people's values and opinions and dreams can be more important to us than our own. We can stop focusing so much on our own success, begin to focus on their success too. It frees us to give up our rights for the good of other people. Frees us to love people unconditionally, because you don't have to agree with me. You don't have to think just like me. You don't have to, like a green wall or whatever I said earlier, like I do. It frees us to no longer feel like we have to be treated in a certain way, like you owe this to me. It frees us to celebrate other people's success and mourn their failure, because it literally has nothing to do with me. Wow. If you can get to that, that's called a discipline, because there's a growth point. We have to grow to get there, to grow outside of ourselves before we can get to there. And once we get there, it'll revolutionize your life. The freedom that comes from this is that you're set free from the anger and bitterness you feel when someone doesn't act the way you think they should. It frees you from the scratch my back, I'll scratch yours rule. It frees you to love your enemies as Jesus told us to. It's like, that's on them if they hate me. It's not me. I mean, maybe I'm weird, whatever, but still I can't control your emotions. It frees you from the desire to retaliate when you've been wronged. Submission at its core is self-denial. I think I have some. Did I make those fill-in blanks on this? It's okay. Self-contempt. It's not, which is different than self-contempt. Self-denial, sometimes we'll confuse that. Well, I just have to act like I hate myself. No. It's not self-contempt. It's self-denial. Self-contempt claims we have no worth. Right? Even if we do, well, we should just reject it. Oh, I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy. It's like, yes, you are. You're a child of the living God, right? You are. You do have worth. Self-denial says we are of infinite worth. I just choose not to be treated like it. Ooh. When you all get that down, write a book, come back to me. Let me know about it. How you get that. Self-contempt claims we have no worth. Self-denial says we are of infinite worth, just choose not to be treated like it. It's a self-denial that actually leads to the self-fulfillment that most people are looking for in life, the freedom. Whoops, almost looked at the wrong one, freedom. Matthew 10:39. Anyone who finds his life will lose it. That kind of sound like what we're talking about? I mean, right? Anyone who loses his life because of me will find it. Submission is at the core of kingdom living. It's very definition. So, submission taught by Jesus. Ultimate example, Jesus going to the cross. Philippians 2:5-8 adopt the same attitude as that of Christ Jesus, who, existing in the form of God, did not consider equality with God as something to be exploited. I'm going to place myself under. Right? Instead, he emptied himself by assuming the form of a servant, taking on the likeness of humanity. When he had come as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even to death on a cross. Now, it's important to note, Jesus didn't just die on the cross. Like his whole entire life was sacrificial living, submissive living. He existed in the form of God in the heavenlies, becoming man, placing himself under the Father, becoming a servant, taking on the likeness of people like us. I mean, what? You know, allowed mere humans to humiliate him as they put him to death. The last week of his earthly life, the submission was on full display. Interactions with the temple guard. Remember when they come to arrest him and they're like, "Hey, where's Jesus? I'm he," you know, and they all fell down. Like he was making it real clear. I can take you out. You know, just understand. I'm giving myself to you. Big moment there. He had an act of submission. He ultimately let them take him. As the Romans drove nails into his hand, I mean, we always think of the physical pain. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure Herbert. I always think of the spiritual pain, knowing the sin. He was becoming a sacrifice for sin. Scripture says he became our sin on the cross. I mean, he could have any moment just wiped out the whole planet and said, "Know what? No, no." But he said, "Know what? No, they are more important. For God so loved the world, they are more important than I am. I'm going to put myself under them. I'm going to let myself die. I'm going to let my blood be shed for them." Total act of submission. Everything about his life on earth was an example of submission, willfully placing himself under those who needed him. He rejected the cultural norms of position and power. In Matthew 23, said, "You're not to be called rabbi because you have a teacher." It's like, you know, talking to the disciples. Don't let people call you stuff, right? You're all brothers and sisters, right? Do not call anyone on earth your father because you have one Father who's in heaven. You're not to be called instructors either because you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled. Whoever humbles himself will be exalted. I don't like you're making fun of me, like, the pastor, like, just call me Dan. I'm just a guy. I mean, I love Jesus. I teach. I like to do. I love everything about the kingdom, but there's nothing. I mean, he's making it real clear here. Don't take on the position of don't clout. You know, what am I trying to say? Strut around with whatever title you have in the church, like, because it's destructive. It's the opposite of kingdom leadership. Opposite, right? Mark 8, calling the crowd along with his disciples, he said to them, "If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, follow me. Whoever wants to save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life because of me and the gospel will save it." So he's calling us to do the same thing that he did. He humbled himself in a massive way. I mean, there's nothing we can even do that comes close to comparing what Jesus did. Mark 9, sitting down, he called the 12 and said to them, "If anyone wants to be first, he must be last, the servant of all." And after washing the disciples' feet in John 13, he says, "I've given you an example that you should also do as I just have done for you." You go out and take the lowest position. You go out and do the lowest thing. You serve people. You show them my love by how you treat them and how you act and how you serve them, right? Talking about the life of volunteer submission. My whole life is that of submission, right? That's submission also taught in the epistles, the New Testament letters. We already read Philippians 2, but we'll just get that little piece there. Everyone should not look at his own interest, but rather the interests of others. Adopt the same attitude of that of Jesus Christ. In the context in 1 Peter of servants submitting to their masters, he said, "If you were called to this because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps. He did not commit sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When he was insulted, he did not insult in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but entrusted himself to the one who judges justly." Like, I'm just going to let God take care of this. You mistreat me all you want. I'm here doing God stuff. Submission. Submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ, fear of Christ. Ephesians 5:21. We already read that one too. There are limits, okay? So you're not, just called to be a doormat. You're not called to do evil, right? So there's some things. We're to submit to authorities, 1 Peter 2, submit to every human authority because of the Lord, whether to the emperor as a supreme authority or to governors as those sent out by him to punish those who do what is evil and to praise those who do what is good. That was to an evil dictator, right? I mean, we think we have it bad. They were evil people. These are the guys who are like, "Hey, kill every 2-year-old and under." It's like, wow, he's like, submit to that guy. Not saying you would take part in killing all 2-year-olds another, because when the authorities told the church to be silent, they said, we got to obey God first. So it comes in violation of Scripture. You draw the line, right? Acts 4, Peter and John answered. They're like, everybody be silent. You guys can't talk about the gospel. They said, well, whether it's right in the sight of God for us to listen to you rather than God, you decide. We're unable to stop speaking about what we have seen and heard. Like, God won't let us be quiet. So there are times you don't just do what the government says or the authorities say if it's asking you to do something that God said to do. In Acts 5, Peter and the apostles replied, we must obey God rather than people. The basic rule of submission must not be followed when to do so becomes destructive. So like I say, you're hurting people, you're breaking laws, you're doing things you shouldn't be doing. Sometimes it's easy. These are examples from foster. A spouse asks you to punish a child unreasonably, or a child asks to help an adult perform a crime by an adult. An adult asks a child to perform a crime. Like, hey, you go steal that thing from me. And like, okay. It's like, no, that's easy. Like, can't do it. A believer asks to violate Scripture and conscience for a job. And the boss tells you to do something. You're like, I can't do that as a follower of Jesus. Well, you just say no. Sometimes a little more fuzzy. Choosing a career path, especially if you're in a marriage and you're disagreeing on which direction to go, is like, what do we do here? What do we do here? That's a little fuzzy. A student receives an unfair grade because of their belief. Maybe they're talking about evolution or abortion or some issue, and the soul's like, well, I'm not going to just bow down to you. But that's kind of fuzzy too. It's like, how do you do it just to get the grade? And that's what I always did. I just got the grade, gave them what they wanted. I had the conviction of my own. So it's a little fuzzy there. An employee being skipped for promotion because of favoritism, you resist, you submit, you complain. It's a little fuzzy. That doesn't say one way or another. So thoughts there. All right, 7 acts of submission from our good friend Foster. First act is submit to God. Submission to God. The first words of the day should always be, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Where do you want me to go? I'm yours. The second submission is submission to Scripture. We yield ourselves to hear the Word, to receive the Word, to obey the Word. So if I'm living one way and the Word says to do something else, it wins. I submit. I submit to God through His Word. All right, number 2. Number 3, submit to family. Freely and graciously make allowances for one another. Sometimes it's the wife to the husband. Sometimes it's the husband to the wife. Remember, right before it says wives submit to the husband, it said submit to one another. So both are in there, right? Sometimes it's the child to the parent. Sometimes it's the parent to the child. So you look at the context. You look at when it's a give and take thing. Who's going to outlove each other? That whole thing. Number 4, submission to neighbors or people we rub shoulders with during the day. If they're in need, help them. This little small acts of kindness, little things that you can do to help them out, sharing food, babysitting, mowing, sharing tools, whatever. Our neighbor swears he owns about 5 feet into our property that would be part of our house as well. I don't argue with him. I say, oh yeah, that's really great. And we smile and I let him mow it. And I guess if they take over someday, they'll have to cut off part of our house. But it's like whatever. I got bigger battles to worry about. Submission to the church. We can't do everything, but we can all do something, right? There's some involvement there. There are corporate things where we're serving the whole entire body, some type of ministry you're involved with, sky's the limit there. There are individuals, things where you're submitting to one another, helping one another. I love the way people randomly take care of Donna Schuyler. You mentioned Donna, and it's just so cool, the little stories I hear sometimes of things that show up, for her she's a retired widow and food or help. We cited her house once. It was just little things we can do. That's what that's talking about. Number 6, submission to the broken and despised. That's how Foster calls it. The widows, orphans, the helpless, the homeless, the undefended, the whole Matthew 25. So what we're doing Saturday is about submission. We're submitting to I'd like to sit around and watch television. I like to watch Scooby-Doo on Saturday morning, but instead I'm going to go... Yeah, that's long gone. Okay, yeah. I tell you, well, yeah. I got one more trip that I'm doing for the mission. I'm going to San Diego, and it's the weekend of the Iowa State football game. Like,
You're not gonna do anything.
I know Iowa State will just roll over, but you know, yeah, that's sad. I thought, you know what? That's more important. More important. We got these little orphan kids that we're gonna go help. And, what was that? What? Oh, and then the last one, submission to the world, helping the world become a better place. And he talks about environmental stuff, just not being irresponsible, taking care of third world countries. Part of the stuff that we do is all about that. So, all right, thoughts? Any revelations? Anything that comes to mind through this? I thought the freedom thing was big. I don't know if I ever grasped that before. At least it didn't stick with me. If I did, I'm sure I read it, but because we always just get frustrated if everybody doesn't agree with us. It's like, what if I just don't care? I don't mean don't care about life. I mean don't care if, I don't care if my way wins. That just frees up a lot of stress.